That's right, in this video, I'm going to break down step by step how to create this advanced retro VHS text animation in DaVinci Resolve Fusion without any plugins. So let's go. Now, once you're in DaVinci, bring in the Fusion composition and extend it to 10 seconds and go to the Fusion page. And first, we're going to start with the aesthetic because the animation is dependent on the aesthetic. So let's bring media out here. Bring in a background node, a text node, and a merge node. Now, first, let's rename them to keep them organized. Outrun text, final merge, and color BG. Let's connect the background to the background input of the final merge, the merge to the media out, and the text to the foreground input of the merge. Now, let's type in our text and click on the viewer, press Control or Command G on the keyboard to bring out the layout guides. We're going to use this for arranging our text and elements on screen. Now, back to the inspector of the text. Let's change the font. I'm going to go with Super Retro M54, and I'm going to increase the size to 0.15. Now, you can use whatever font you want. There are no restrictions, but keep in mind, white fonts work the best for these type of text animations. Now, let's jump into shading. And I'm going to change the type from solid to gradient. And I'm going to add 6 points in between these two existing ones. Now, from left to right, I'm going to change the colors. So first one is going to be pure white. Now, for the second color, we're going to bring in this pink magenta hue. Also, all the hex codes are going to be on screen if you want to follow along. So click OK. Now for the third color, I'm going to bring in this shade of blue. Now for the fourth one, this darker shade of blue. Now for the fifth, I'm going to go pure white because we're going to create harsh and gradient separations between the colors. Sixth color also is going to be pure white. Now, for the seventh, we're going to go with a different shade of blue. And for the eighth, it's going to be a darker shade of the same blue. Now, I'm going to change the position of the points to create the harsh and gradient separations. Now, this looks good. Let's go down to shear now and change the x-axis to -0.03 to give it a slight italic look, which is somewhat specific to these type of animations. Now let's go up to elements and select element number 2, enable it. And this is our outline element. So let's first align it with the main text. So back to shear and change the value of x-axis to -0.3. Now let's change the composite blending mode to transparent. And let's increase the thickness to 0.03 and let's check 325. Perfect. Now, if you want a thicker outline or a slimmer one, that's up to you. This one works perfect for this animation. Now, I'm going to change the type from solid to gradient as well and add only 1 point in the middle. And to make sure it's in the middle, I'm going to double click its position and type in 0.5. This will make sure it's exactly in the middle. And as before, from left to right, I'm going to change the first color to pure white, second color to this shade of purple or blue in this case. And I'm going to move the points so that, actually, let me control scroll to zoom. And I'm going to move the points so that the purple color aligns somewhere in the middle of the text to create that fake chrome effect. Now you don't have to be very precise. If you go around 80% of the way, you're good to go. Good. Now let's fit the view and let's start our first animation. Let's go back to the layout tab and let me show you a little neat trick. If you go to the frame indicator, double click and change its value, you can now move the playhead at the frame you want without fiddling in the frame's timeline. Now we are at frame 36 and I'm going to change center Y value to 0.546. This will bring the text a little bit up and leave room for the second text that will be right here in the middle and a bit down. Now I'm going to set a keyframe for center Z at value 0 and for rotation Z axis at value 0 add frame 36. Then I'm going to move to frame 0 and I'm going to set center Z to -1.41 this will bring the text outside of the screen. And for rotation z-axis, I'm going to type in 360 for 360 degrees. Now, if we play this back, we'll see the text spins and comes in. Now I'm going to make the outline to fill text transition. So let's move one frame over to frame 37, go to the shading tab, select element 1, disable it, and set a keyframe. Then let's jump to frame 38 and re-enable it. Next, we're going to make this transition look better. So bring up the text node and press Ctrl or Command and spacebar to bring out the select tool, and let's search for duplicate. Oh, sorry, not duplicate, for lens reflection. We're going to bring in duplicate a little bit later. Now, keep in mind, this node is very powerful, so be careful how you play with the settings because you can slow down your computer significantly. So first, let's check alpha limit effect. And then from global controls preset, I'm going to choose streaks. Then I'm going to jump at frame 36 and set reflection 1 brightness to 0. But before that, I'm going to double click its value and copy it. Then I'm going to change it to 0 and set a keyframe. After that, I'm going to jump to frame 38, bring back its value. And then I'm going to jump to frame 40 and reset it back to 0. Now, the final touch for this transition, a glow node with the lens reflection selected. Again, Control or Command spacebar, and let's search for glow. And I'm going to choose the one with GLO in parentheses. Now, let's go to frame 37. Now, the best settings that I found for this specific situation are glow size of 22.8, glow at 0.354, and blend at 0.394. This gives us a soft bloom. Now, let's move to frame 38. And, oh wait, at frame 37, sorry, my mistake. At frame 37, we're going to set a keyframe for glow. Then we're going to jump at frame 38. And we're going to increase the value to 0.921. Now, if you want to go overboard with this, be my guest. If you want to go a little bit lower, again, it's up to you, but this works the best in this case. Now let's jump to frame 40 and bring back the value of glow to 0.354. And now if we play this back, we can see we have a perfect bloom transition. Now let's create the trails that you saw in the beginning where the text spins. And to do that, we're going to add the duplicate node. But first, I'm going to rename the glow to outrun glow. And with it selected, actually, let's move these up. And with it selected, we're going to control space and search for duplicate. And we're going to bring in the DUP in parentheses node. Let's first rename so we don't forget, outrun dupe. And then in the inspector, we're going to set the number of copies to 1. And we're going to move the playhead to frame 36 and set a keyframe for copies. Then for size at value 1 and for blend, but at value 0.299. Then I'm going to move the playhead to frame 22 and I'm going to change the copies to 4. And I'm going to change also the blend to 1. Then I'm going to move to frame 8 and I'm going to change the size value to 1.32. Now, if we play this back, we see that we have our trails, but they're in line. So to change this, we're just going to change the time offset to 1.27. This gives a slight rotation to the animation. So let's play this one back. Perfect. Again, you can go overboard and change any settings I just showed you. It's up to you, but these are the perfect ones for me and what I want to make right now. Now, the animation for the first text is done, so all that is left is to finish the aesthetic, mainly the RGB split that you saw in the beginning. And to do that, we need channel booleans. So let's bring our nodes out, double click an empty space and bring in channel booleans and choose the BOL in parentheses 1. Now I'm gonna Control or Command C and Control or Command V 4 times because I need 5 copies in total. So I'm gonna click on the first one, rename it to red. And now let me show you a cool little trick. If you select all nodes and press F2, you can rename them one after another. So let's go with green, blue, the merge between red and green, and finally the merge between red, green, and blue. Now, there is a specific way you need to connect them. So let's first do that. And it's going to be red, green, and blue. Actually, I'm going to go this way, and I'll show you why in a bit. Then red, green, and then RGB. Now let's bring these in and connect our duplicate node to first the background input of the red, then to the background input of the green, then to the background input of the blue. And let's bring in the dual viewer, and I'm gonna press 1 on the red channel so you can see what happens. Now, with the red boolean selected, I'm gonna leave operations to copy and the value for to red foreground. But I'm gonna change green to black and blue to black. And this will isolate and separate the red channel from the rest. Now, alpha remains as is because it's not affecting us in any shape or form. Now, let's do the same for green. Red goes to black, green stays, blue goes to black. And for blue, red and green go to black and blue stays on. And let me add a pipe router. Press and hold Alt or Option on your keyboard and left click. This will bring a pipe router, which helps us with organization. Perfect. Let's bring these two a little bit lower. Now, we have separated our channels, but we need to bring them back together. So let's select red and green and connect red to the background input and green to the foreground input. And let me bring a pipe router here too. Now, with the red-green selected, I'm gonna leave every setting as is and only change operation from copy to add. Now, if I bring this up, you can see the combination of red and green making yellow. Now, you probably have guessed, we're gonna connect red-green to the background input of RGB and blue to the foreground. Next, I'm gonna select the RGB Boolean and change this one to add as well. And now if I bring this up, we're gonna see our colors back together. Let me connect the RGB Boolean to the final merge and switch back to one viewer. Now, we made this separation so we can manipulate each color individually. And let me show you how we're gonna do that. With the red and green only, we're gonna add transform nodes to them to change their position. So let's select red, and from the toolbar, select the transform node. Let's rename this to RT. And here, I'm gonna move the center x-axis to the left, just a little bit. If you wanna go overboard with the separation, that's up to you, but I like to have it close to the text. So a value of 0.497 is perfect. Next, I'm gonna do the same thing for green. Let's rename it to G_T. And this time, I'm gonna go with center X to the right around here. So not too much, just 0.501. Next, we're gonna animate these because they're gonna be part of the intro, but once the text changes, we don't need them. So let's move the playhead at frame 37 and set a keyframe for center X and Y for the red. Move to frame 38 and reset center X to 0.5, basically back to normal. Now, back at frame 37, we're going to do the same thing for green, keyframe for center X and Y, jump back to 38, and reset it to 0.5. And now we're back to normal. Let's play this one more time. Perfect. Now, one last housekeeping thing. I'm going to select all nodes and bring them out here and bring the pipe routers in. And I'm going to double click on the empty space and search for an underlay just to keep things organized. Let's rename this to outrun animation and bring it over behind the nodes, extend and extend. And with this, we are done with the first text. And now we can move on to the background elements and bring in the triangle. And to do that, we're gonna double click on the empty space, control spacebar and search for S and gone. And after that for S render, because without the render, we cannot see the shape. Now, they're automatically connected as they should be. And let's rename the S and gone to triangle shape and S render to shape render. Now I'm gonna bring another merge node and rename it to background elements merge. And I'm going to connect the S render to the foreground input of the merge and the color background to the background element of the merge. And bring these down and connect the background elements merge to the final merge. Perfect. Now we can see our shape. So let's start customizing. First, we're gonna change the sides to 3 because we want a triangle. Then we're gonna uncheck solid and increase the border width to 0.006. because this thickness is enough. Next, I'm gonna set the position to 1 and the length to 0. Then I'm gonna go down to width and change it to 0.441, the height to 0.764, and the angle to -90 degrees. Now, you won't see anything because I unchecked it. Let me just bring in the solid back. So this is how it's gonna look. Now, uncheck solid again, and let's move the playhead at frame 37. And I'm gonna set a keyframe for border width and change its value first. Copy it and then change it to 0 at frame 37. Then I'm going to jump to frame 38 and bring in the border width back to its original value and set a keyframe for the position and the length. Then I'm going to jump to frame 60 and I'm going to change the position to 0.501 and the length to 1. Now, these values are fixed because otherwise the animation will not start from the bottom point and unite at the top in the middle. Next, let's go to style and change the color to a somewhat darker magenta tone, but not too dark, somewhere around here. Click OK, and let's add the final stylization element for the triangle, which is another glow node. So let's select the S render and control space and add the same glow. Keep in mind, if you want to add the glow between the render and the triangle, it's not going to work. Now let's rename this to shape glow. Leave the playhead at frame 60. And for this glow, you're going to need glow size set to 18.9 and also set a keyframe for it. Glow, it's going to be 0.748 and also set a keyframe for it, and the blend stays as is. Next, let's jump to frame 62 and let's increase the glow size to 35.4 and the glow to 0.882. Then jump to frame 64 and bring them back to 18.9 and 0.748. And this will give us a nice pulsing effect after they unite. And this was it for the background element. Now let's give some color to our background. So select the background node, change the type from solid color to gradient, change the type from linear to radial, set the start point to 0.5. So we have a vignette type of effect. And again, from left to right, let's change the color. I'm gonna choose a deep dark blue. I'm gonna copy the hex code and I'm gonna paste it into the right color. And here I'm just gonna darken the tone a little bit so we get that vignette effect. Perfect. Now let's also add a underlay for the background. BG elements. Let's bring the nodes out, bring this over, expand and expand. And let's contract this. Perfect. Now let's move on to the second text. And to do that, we're going to need 2 merge nodes and 1 text node. Now, first merge, I'm going to rename it to outrun text animation. Sorry, text merge. And I'm going to connect the outrun animation to the foreground of the merge. Let me bring this to out. Take the BG elements merge and connect it to the background of the outrun merge. Next, I'm going to connect outrun merge to merge 2, which I'm going to rename to year text merge and connect this one to the final merge. And then text, which is going to be year, I'm going to connect it to the foreground of, you guessed it, year text merge. Now let's select our text node and type in 1987. And here I'm going to go with the font Laser 84. Again, you can go with whatever font you want. This is the one I like. Now for size, I'm going to set it to 0.12 because I don't want it to be too big. And let's zoom in and change the tracking to 1.136. Now this value is specific because it gives enough separation between the numbers, which we're going to use later when we are going to animate the text. Now let's fit to frame and let's go to the shading tab and let's select a bright pink or magenta depending on your taste. Perfect. And let's copy the color because we're going to use it for the outline. Now let's go to element number 2, enable it and change the type to gradient and the blending from composite to transparent. Let's zoom in a little bit. And here I'm going to add 2 points to the gradient and from left to right, pure white, font color again, and again, pure white. Now I'm going to bring these middle points almost close to each other and the whites just a little bit in, because this one I am trying to have more color than white on the edges. Something like this. Perfect. Now for the year node, I'm going to add a transform node that will take care of the placement of the text. And I'm doing this because I'm also going to add a mask to the text that's going to be animated. And if I want to keep the animation intact for the text and the mask, no matter where I place the text and the mask on the screen and animation, then I need to add this transform node to take care of both the mask's placement and animation and the text's placement, because otherwise it's going to go haywire. So let's add the transform node. Let's call it year transform. Let's fit the frame and change the y-axis to 0.44. This will place our year text nicely below our first text. Now let's change the angle to 5 degrees. And for the last part of the design, we're going to add a glow node. So same glow node, rename it to year glow. And for this glow node, the settings are glow size 13.4, glow is going to stay at default 0.8, and blend is going to go to 0.157. Perfect. Now that we're done with the design of the second text, let's create the handwriting animation. So double click on empty space, control spacebar, and search for mask paint. And I'm going to bring this up and connect it to the mask input of the text node. Now the order of steps here is very important, because if you make a mistake, you'll have to undo multiple times or even reset the node and start over with the animation. So be careful and watch closely what I do. So step number 1 is to move the playhead at frame 62. And from the toolbar, select the third brush, which is the stroke brush. Now let's first go to the mask tab and click on invert so we can see our text for now. Then jump into the controls, open brush controls and stroke controls. And from the stroke controls, let's change from all frames to right on. Let's zoom in and reduce the softness of the brush to 0, or in this case, it's 0.001, and change the size of the brush to fit the number, but make sure the size is not so big that it overlaps between the numbers. Now, the brush that worked for me in this animation was around 0.025. Now let's see if I was right. Okay, it's a bit too big, so let's go down to 0.0243. Let's see if it overlaps. Not exactly, but I want to be careful, so I'm going to go to 0.024. That should do the trick. Now, once you start clicking, keyframes are going to be set. So you click once, you draw the animation, and then you release the click. So let's start with number 1 from the front, up, down, below, over 9, going up, now to 8, to the left, down to the right, going up, next to 7, and down. Good. Now we can see the keyframes. So let's go to mask and invert the mask. Then open the keyframes panel. Let's bring our nodes out here and search for mask paint. So let's open this one, click on end, and let's expand our keyframes so we can see them better. And if you see 2 strokes, keep in mind that the one that has an arrow next to it is the one that has keyframes. I think this is a bug with public beta DaVinci Resolve 20. I don't know, but if you click on the second stroke and then on mask paint, it disappears. So let's open up the stroke 1, select end, and let's click and select our keyframes until they turn yellow. Make sure all of them are selected. Next, right click on them and select time stretching. Now let's grab the right handle and bring them in until we reach frame 84. And if you want to be precise, you can expand them again, go with the playhead at frame 84 and bring them in. So the animation takes place between 62 and 84. Now let's fit the frame, select media out so we have almost everything clean, and let's play this back. So the brush went quite perfect, quite perfect. And that was it for the design and animation of the second text. Now I'm going to close the keyframes tab and I'm going to disable the lens reflection in the first animation because I want a smooth workflow going forward since we're going to add multiple effects. And with that being said, we can move on to the final elements and the finishing touches of the overall animation. And we're going to start with the overall glitch effect. So let's move final merge and media out way over here, because we're going to need the space. And for the RGB separation of the glitch itself, I'm going to copy the RGB separation that I already did. So I'm going to fast forward because the process is the same. So as before, 3 channel booleans for each color, red, green, blue, 1 for the red-green merge, and 1 for all 3. And M stands for master because this is going to be the master RGB split that goes over everything we did until now. But we're still missing 2 major ingredients to this RGB split effect. And those 2 ingredients are 3 displace nodes and 1 fast noise node. Now let's rename the first one to RD, second one to RG, and third one to RB. And as you guessed, we're going to place them in between the individual colors and their respective merge nodes. Perfect. Now we're going to connect the fast noise node to all 3. Let's make some room. And the connection is going to be in the foreground input. And let's add some pipe routers so we don't make a mess here. And let's start animating. Move the playhead to frame 168. Select the fast noise node and let's go to the color tab first. Here I'm going to switch from 2 color to gradient, leave the gradient type to uni, and change how the colors are on the gradient, basically switching their places. Now let's go back to the noise tab and I'm going to increase the detail to the max and I'm going to set a keyframe for it. Next, I'm going to increase the contrast to around a maximum of 3.3. 3.29 is good. Then the brightness, I'm going to increase it to a max of 0.9596. 97 is good. Next, I'm going to uncheck lock X and Y so we can play with the scales individually. And for X scale, I'm going to set 2.2 because I don't need much. And for the Y scale, I'm going to push it to the max. Now I'm going to move to frame 144 and I'm going to set the details to 0. And these settings will give a strong glitch distortion, but not too over the top. Now, one final touch for the animation. Right click on Seed Rate, choose Modify Width, and from here choose Shake. Let's go to the Modifiers tab. And here I'm going to decrease the smoothness below 1.20. 1.18 is good. The lower the smoothness, the faster the animation is going to be. Next, I'm going to set the minimum to around 0.4 to 0.5. Okay, 0.449 is good. And the maximum, I'm just simply going to bring it to the middle and type in 0.5. And I'm doing this balancing of minimum and maximum to make the motion really feel like old static glitches we used to see on old TVs and not be too fast and chaotic at the same time. And if we play with this, we can see it increases over time. Now, let's go to each displace node. Let's start first with the red displace. And here I'm going to change the position of the center X and Y to whatever value I want, because now it's not important to have a specific position. So you can go as crazy as you want. So in my case, I'm going to change X to the right. I'm going to move it to the right. Perfect. And let's go down with the Y. Perfect. I'm really just eyeballing this, so I'm not aiming for any specific value. Now let's go to green and do the same. Let's go to the right with this one, and I'm going to go up this time. So I have some color on the top side. Perfect. Now for blue, again to the right, and I'm going to go down this time. Perfect. Let's fit to frame. And as I said, our aim here is just to create a random separation. So go ahead and go crazy with it. Now let's play this back and see how it looks. Perfect. Now we're going to add the elements that create that old TV static look. So let's move final merge and media out of the way. Double click on empty space and control spacebar and search for film damage. Shift click, bring it in. And with film damage, I will go for a no blur and a cooler tone to it. So film blur goes to 0, temperature shift goes to negative 0.36. I found that this value gives me enough of a cool tone. And for temperature shift, I'm going to increase it to around under 1.2. So in this case, 1.17 is perfect. And then I'm going to jump to dirt density and change it from 2 to 4 because I don't want too much dirt density in my frame. So let's fit to frame. And now I will search, let's add a pipe router here. So make it look nice and clean. And next on the list is analog damage. Let's bring this in and let's expand everything in here and let's start customizing. First things first, I'm going to disable adjust CRT framing because it's annoying and it's not going to help us anyway. Next, I'm going to move to frame 156 and continue the customization. So from broadcast signal, I'm going to reduce the noise scale to around 0.6. Okay, 0.6181 is perfect. Then I'm going to decrease the signal noise to a minimum of 0.244 works. I was aiming for 2.5, but 2.44 seems to work. And I'm going to set a keyframe for signal noise. Then I'm going to reduce chroma noise to a minimum of 0.3. Okay, 0.307 is okay. And I'm going to set the detail loss to 0 and chroma detail loss to 0 as well. And also chroma misalignment. Almost forgot this. Now, moving to color dials, I'm going to set the brightness to 0.02 and I'm going to set a keyframe for it. The contrast, I'm going to set it to 1. The color also to 1 and the tint to 0. Then I'm going to jump to scan lines. And for line sharpness, I'm going to set it to a maximum of 0.24. Okay, 236 is fine. And line frequency, I'm going to move it somewhere in between 11 and 12. Okay, 11.73 is perfect. Next, in TV construction, I'm going to adjust the phosphor brightness to around 0.18 and set the max curvature to 0. Now in VHS, I just set everything to 0 because I don't need anything here. And now I'm going to move to frame 168 and I'm going to set the signal noise to 0.65 and the brightness to a maximum of 0.5. Let's move this up and let's search for our next element, which is brightness and contrast. Let's bring this in and go to frame 214 and I'm going to set a keyframe for gain, add value 1, then move to frame 216 and change the gain value to around 2.8, 2.9. So it's going to be really bright. Okay, 2.822 is perfect. Now I will add one final transform node and I'm really going to name it final transform and uncheck use size and aspect. So we have X size and Y size individually. And while still at frame 216, I'm going to set a keyframe for X size at value 1. Then I'm going to move to frame 220 and I'm going to set the X size to 0.01 and set a keyframe for Y size. Then I'm going to jump to frame 223 and set the Y size to 0. Now, to completely finish off this animation, we need only two more elements. A final background, which we're going to leave at default black, and we're going to connect it to the merge. Right-click on the merge and swap inputs. And right after the transform, we're going to search for another glow node. We're going to name this final glow. And for this final glow, we're going to go to frame 216 and set a keyframe for both glow size and glow at value 0. Then jump to frame 218 and increase the glow size to around 40 or a bit above, and the glow to around 0.9 or a bit above. Now let's enable lens reflections. Select the media out, click on the view and Control or Command G to remove the layout guides. Let's just, for safety, press Control or Command S, even though we have auto save enabled. Place the playhead at the beginning and let's play back this animation. Now I noticed that at the first run, The triangle glow looked good, but now not so much. So let's go to shape glow and move the playhead at frame 62. And let's increase the glow value and decrease the glow size a little bit and add a keyframe for blend also. So let's go back to frame 60, add a keyframe at value 0.2, move to frame 62, increase the blend somewhere around 0.4, and let's jump back to frame 64 and bring it back to 0.2. Let's play this back. Okay, now it looks authentic. And this tutorial idea came actually from the comment section of another text animation tutorial I did for DaVinci Resolve. So if you want me to break down motion graphics and text animations in DaVinci Resolve, drop a comment with an example or an idea, and I'll do my best to make it happen. And if you're curious what that other tutorial was, you can check it right here. And until next time, take care.